I love my team. I really, everybody has their days, right? But in the long run, I am blessed with who I have that working for me. We got some people that have been working us for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We had a driver that retired a few years ago at 50 some odd years. He's almost 90. He's a great guy. So those are good signs. I hope that the feeling is mutual.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari Santiago, President, CEO of IT Direct, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with George Giering, President of Giering Metal Finishing. I'm really excited to hear about George's background and what they're doing in their manufacturing business here in Connecticut. George, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's super my pleasure, and it's the Made in America podcast. So we start off with the same two questions, George. What do you make, and why do you make it?
Well, we actually don't make anything. We're a service. So we do metal finishing for anybody that makes a widget. So somebody that makes a product, they bring it to us. Not a lot of people love to deal with paint. So they bring us the product, and then we put the finish that they want on it and send it right back to them.
So we're going to get into the what you guys do in a little bit, but let's talk about the why. Why does Giering Metal Finishing exist? How did it start, and how did you get into it?
Well, it started in 1939 from my grandfather. He used to work at Eli Whitney Gun Factory as a night watchman. But on the side, he would work out of his garage and hand paint dental chairs. And he was really good at it. He had this like Ponzi scheme where he would get a dental chair and they would paint it, and then he would give another guy that chair and while he was working on it. And so eventually he could make a career out of it. So, and then right at that time, the war kind of erupted. People needed paint service for military parts. And the rest is history.
So 1939, we start pre-1939. We're painting dental chairs.
Yeah.
Now I'm all thinking about what a dental chair looked like in the 1930s, but we can move past that.
Sure.
And then the business gets started was it all in sort of like that type of chair product, or where'd you guys start off with originally?
So from 39 to 1954, he went through a few partners. They kind of did all kinds of different metal finishing, plating, anodizing. We actually found some really old reels of the business back then. It's really interesting to see what they actually could do. But in 1954, he broke off from his partners and started his own thing. So actual Giering Metal Finishing was incorporated in 54. The building was built in Hamden, the original building, and then start off from there.
Well, I'm sure you weren't involved in the business in 1954.
No, not even. I wasn't even an idea.
That's right. You weren't an idea of an idea, possibly even
That's
in
correct.
1954.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the business, George?
Basically from birth, I was, my dad spent a lot of time at our facility. And so I would spend my summer out, my summer days working there, washing windows, doing this and that, working for a few of the, departments. And I actually had a little bit of a break from the business. I kind of branched off, did a few things during college and after, and then came back into it. But I always had a knack for it. I always, watching it was always really interesting to see as a kid. Being there Saturdays, being in a factory is just it's like a boy's dream to see all this equipment there. So you walk in and there's conveyors and there's parts. So it was always an interest. I didn't always want to go into the business. But after college, I was going to start a job, and then my dad had two guys retire, two key men, and the business had always been really good to me, and so I decided to help him out.
No kidding.
Yep.
So you come in there as a kid, and you're just wowed by all of the machinery. And I think I'm just going to pull on that for like a little bit, because one of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast is that seems like for some reason, we've moved away from encouraging young people to get into the trades and into manufacturing in general. But seems like you were kind of inspired right from an early age. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Everything around us is manufactured here, right? So it's a really important thing to learn. It's like learning electronics, learning plumbing, all really key things. Once you have that house and you're like, something breaks, you gotta know what to do.
Sure.
There's a lot of talented people. Painting is kind of an art. Not a lot of people, not just anybody can walk and just paint, There's some good artists and there's some not so good artists. So it's a knack. You're not just punching numbers into a machine. It's an art to learn how to paint, how to get the paint finish to be nice and smooth. So it's really cool to watch. And it's there's not a lot of companies that can do it well.
That's great. So why did you not, you said originally you kind of went in a different direction. I think you got your degree in biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering.
So it's definitely a little bit
not painting whatsoever.
Yeah, not painting, not even manufacturing.
No.
So what kind of, why were you going in that direction?
I really had a good interest in medicine.
Okay.
For a while, I used to watch I was a dentist's dream, right? So, I was there, I had braces, just watching those guys work. They had a really knack for detail. And so that's why I pursued biomedical engineering. Engineering is great. It's a great field. You can kind of do anything at that point. And so that's why I
just followed that up.
I did that.
And then, so the opportunity opens up, back at Giering. You talk to your dad. You're like, hey, let me come back and see what's going on. Where does it go from there?
He had just told me about the two guys retiring, and we had that discussion. That was the real, like, it was a hard place for him to be in. So since I already kind of had a notion of what went on there, I came back and just helped them do estimating.
Okay.
And sales. Sales was we all know how important sales is.
Yeah.
So without sales, you have no customers.
That's right.
So I started off doing that, just getting on the road, pounding on doors. Hey, how are we doing? What can we do better? Hey, can I get that job? It started off with actually this part right here. That was one of my first jobs, and it was a good job. Well, it's still with us.
Let's talk about that. So I actually think it's not something we've talked about enough on the podcast, because you're absolutely right. Sales and getting new customers is a critical part of business. And we spend so much time on this podcast talking about culture, talking about process improvement, a lot of inward facing stuff, which is good.
Sure.
But you can't grow your business just focused inwardly. You got to get out there and tell the story. So I do want to hear the story about that part. So why don't you tell it?
Yeah. We had,
what is it, first of all?
I remember how exactly we got the customer's name, but they had reached out, I think, to my father, and he goes, get out there and see if you can get that job. So went out there and knocked on the guy's door. We talked about what we did, and we did some sampling, and he gave me his, it was currently being finished by somebody else, and what their qualms were and what they did like and what they didn't like about that. So I said, well, we can fix what you don't like. Let's try it. So we did it. It's a grenade for Marines. They're kind of assembled in sausage links. And if we had to get from A to B, if we were soldiers, we wanted to get from over there, except there was a bunch of obstacles in the way.
Sure.
This detonates and just blows a nice clear path right to the object. So it's
that's a Marine grenade.
Parts. It's a green grenade. It's obviously not loaded and live.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that to you. But
thank you.
Yeah, we have a plethora of stuff that we've gotten over the years here.
So what was your getting into the business? Right. So this is about 2001, I think. Right. You're getting started. Young kid. You just not that far out of school.
Wet behind the ears.
That's right. So what was your approach to finding new business at that time?
It goes back to the book. They used to have the Thomas Register.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever know what that was, but it was a book that sat behind you on a shelf, and you'd pull it out and it would have everybody listed. Hey, this is what they do, and you could make calls off of that. So whether it was cold calling or calling and saying, hey, I want to be in the area, can I stop in? That's kind of how we had to do it. We had a pretty good list. I have to admit, a lot of our business comes from word of mouth, and because it's a small manufacturing area in the Northeast, so kind of a lot of people know everybody. So I didn't always have to go on the road. Mm-hmm. Some business comes to us, but when I did, that's how we did it.
That's how you did it. So now in 2020, what's changed in terms of sales and marketing in your perspective?
Well, customers come and go, contracts come and go. The way we do business has changed. A lot of people don't have that time. A lot of people don't keep things on the shelf. So that's kind of tough. We, like I said, my grandfather started a business doing U.S. military contracts. And you can do that all the time, no problem. But we found that as those contracts got busy and then they weren't busy, we were always looking for work. So trying to diversify our company into a little bit of everything and not putting all our eggs in one basket was really important for us as a business.
Is that something that you've been focusing on in the last 19 years, is kind of that diversification? And how are you finding that?
Yeah, for the last 9 years since I've been at the helm, we've been working on that.
Okay.
It's not easy because you're not always going to get the job that you want. Like I want that job. That's the job. You may not always get it because your customer may not get it from the end customer.
Right.
So you have to just, keep pounding. Like I said, keep pounding on those doors, finding out, put your ear to the rail, hear these things coming, and
then try and go through that.
That's how we got them.
So where from where it stands today, Giering Metal Finishing, what markets are you guys in?
Man, we're in a lot. Obviously, U.S. Military Department of Defense. We still have a pretty good workload from U.S. Automotive, agriculture, medical. We had some involvement on a lot of hot projects for the COVID outbreak. As far as chest X-ray devices, respirators, ventilators. So there was some centrifuges for antibodies.
Really?
Yeah, pretty neat.
I guess you just don't really think about that. So what's your role in like a centrifuge or a chest X-ray machine? Like,
I certainly wasn't engineering it, but we got to paint it. So they would have these large castings that have to be painted gray, or heat exchangers that have to be painted black because it needs to go inside there and be protected in that type of environment.
So is the work that you guys do in terms of the finishing, how much of it is aesthetic versus functional?
We don't do a lot of Class A super fussy aesthetic work.
Okay.
Most of it is functional.
Okay.
Most of the stuff that we do is corrosion protection.
Okay.
So like automotive, they don't want cars rusting. They want to keep it.
Nobody wants their car rusting, George.
No, definitely not. So that's the biggest part of our business is protection. But we do a lot of cosmetic stuff here. I mean, obviously, a lot of the stuff that's in front of us here is seen. Oil filter cans.
Not everyone's watching this on YouTube. No, it's fine. Let's just go through it. So we did the grenade. What's the? You've got a yellow cylinder thing. What's
this is an oil.
It says
filter.
"Do not use" on the top.
Right. This is for the agricultural industry. So every tractor's got an oil filter.
Sure, makes sense.
Good work. Yeah, so we actually do both the colors. So we'll paint a part yellow, pink, red, whatever. And then we can also do the graphic on top of it. We do silk screening as well. So kind of like your beautiful t-shirt you got on, your Hartford t-shirt here, we can do that. That's actually a really nice shirt.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Actually, I tried to, I was thinking about trying to do something. It's not really related to Gearing Metal Finishing, but I was just been thinking about, you mentioned COVID. I've been thinking about trying to kind of bring some attention to some like more local businesses. So I picked up this shirt. I know you're a New Haven guy, but this is Hartford shirt, came from Hartford Prints on Pratt Street, downtown Hartford. And these like retail establishments are struggling. So picked it up online, and thank you.
It's a very nice. I didn't get the memo. I could have done a little business formal.
Yeah, that's right. Business informal.
Business informal. Yeah,
that's right. No, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what else? So you guys are kind of making all this stuff. So you got the oil canister, the military.
Tesla. This is the hinge that goes on the charging port for the new Tesla T3.
Okay.
So when you go and obviously you don't put fuel in it,
right.
Put your juice in there. That's for that. So we have some. That's a cannula for knee surgery.
Okay.
Talk about. I said we don't do jewelry and Class A work, but we got involved. This is a project for Timex.
No kidding.
And we actually got to paint the face of the watch, which is a huge opportunity for us. Something that I would never have foreseen us to get involved in, but it was an awesome opportunity. Timex, who obviously makes watches, most of that stuff comes from offshore. And they took this project on, a made in America, 100% made in America watch, which right now is unheard of.
Okay.
So really neat.
That's really great. Is that new? Is that a new project?
It was last year.
Nice. 2019.
Yeah.
So what are you guys? So let's go take a step back on kind of your individual journey. So talk a little bit about your journey. A lot of people in Connecticut are in multi-generational businesses. How did you learn how to run the business, right? There's like two aspects of it, right? There's the technical aspect of running the machines and dealing with that. And then there's the personnel aspect and the business aspect. Over your kind of 19-year official, let's call it, career, excluding the teenage years, and maybe even before the teenage years, how did you learn how to kind of take the helm of the business? Where did you learn all that?
Really sitting right beside my dad. He ran a good tight ship. It's not easy. I mean, it's also really important. I've found in the last 9 years, and from people telling me, you can learn a lot from other people, but surrounding yourself with talented people is so important. I don't get to interact every day with every single one of my employees. I would love to, and I certainly walk the floor enough. But having others do some of that managerial work is really important, so I could focus, because I've always been a sales guy. So having others kind of deal with other people, having someone good in HR, having someone good with all those, with the numbers and reporting back to me, getting people to do that is so important from the top.
How did you learn how to do that? As someone who runs a business myself, it's easy to say that, and I think you hear it, and I'm like, yeah, I super agree with that.
Oh yeah.
But it's not as easy to implement as it is to say. So talk a little bit about your implementation of that, and what have you learned along the way?
4 years ago, my accountant introduced me to a business mentor. And it's made a big difference in my job, even personally for me, to be able to see the forest through the trees. I brought him on. He was, he actually ran it was a metal finishing company up here in this area for decades. I learned a lot from him. So he's helped me focus. He's been a shoulder to cry on. He's given me input. He's kind of, I'll bounce questions off where it's nice to have someone to bounce things off of. It's easy to kind of second guess yourself, and it's nice to say, hey, man, I really don't know if I should do this. And he says, well, do this and follow your gut, but maybe try this. So that's been
Is a
really
business
helpful.
mentor and a business coach kind of the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
And is this something that you sort of officially found, or it was like someone knew someone and this person was like retired and was like, yeah, George, I'll help you out? I mean, is this like a thing people can just go find?
Mike had it was kind of like a group session. It was it was like a networking group, right?
Okay.
So he would run it, and he would bring all these different people that had different businesses, and we would go and we would share what we do and what we struggle with and what we actually excel in, and we would share those ideas. It was a nice group. Eventually, it spawned off to just having Mike come in and work with me to actually be in the business, so that we could actually focus on certain aspects of the business.
That's
Grants, new systems coming in, IT components, and what was going to be important, and what customers were on the horizon that we wanted to get that we couldn't get. Like, there were certain medical customers we couldn't get because we were a little too dated. We didn't have all the, we were in like the 20th century. So it was really important to get to the next level.
And you feel like, and can we plug his name out? Is Mike?
Mike Fromson.
Mike Fromson. So, and you think Mike was a super big help in kind of helping you see the forest of trees and navigate some of these like bigger decision-making processes?
We all have our faults, and you really don't always want to hear them, but it's kind of important too. And to come to grips, like, okay, I'm not perfect. What do I need to work on? And then someone just to give you that push to do it.
Yeah,
that's important. It's important for me. I know that not everybody wants to change, and not everybody wants to try a new focus. But it's been important for me because we've done a lot in the last 3 years. 4 years.
Listen, George, I think that's fantastic. A lot of people could really learn from that. I think it is hard sometimes to get that honest look in the mirror. Oof. And those of us that have been running a company and owning a company for a long time, sometimes you realize you don't really get the unvarnished information all the time from people that work for you, because ultimately, your name's on the building.
Yeah, I get it.
So to have someone to come from the outside who's, let's say, not afraid, or in maybe some cases even being paid to tell you what you need to hear, but what you might not want to hear, if you're willing to listen, that sounds like that's super valuable.
For sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you ask an employee, hey, am I doing this wrong? No, George, you're doing a great job. Not terrible, George. So those kind of things, for me to be able to realize, hey, we gotta we got to take a new direction on that.
That's really great. Do you have any like specific kind of examples that you think people could learn from that you might be willing to share that Mike's kind of helped you see? You mentioned you've done a lot in the last kind of handful of years. Anything in specific you think people could learn from that you might want to share?
Well, I think from a manufacturing standpoint, we've done a lot with research and design. We've taken a lot of risk in investing in certain aspects of our business that we not necessarily would always do. And so I think that leap of faith to say, okay, let's just do it and try it. And actually it being successful it's paid off, and it's been a breath of fresh air that we can actually do these kind of things. It's really important to reinvest in your business and put the money back in. And so, that whether it's building updates, equipment updates, trying new ways to paint, just because it's worked so many years doesn't always mean it's the right way. It's hard to take that risk, but it's so important.
Wow, that's a really, I love that you brought that up, and I'm just going to pull on it a little bit because I think it's so right. When we start the businesses, and I know you weren't there in the 30s when it started, but
sure.
When you start a business, you're taking this huge risk, right?
Huge.
You're investing in something that's totally unproven, leaving a job or a steady job, but somehow we build the business and we take a bunch of risks in the beginning, but then we get to this point where it's been working, and now we're afraid to take another risk because we don't want to lose what we have. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm about to, so hopefully you agree with that. Which is like, but if we don't keep taking risks, the business is not going to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like, how do you think about taking those risks now? Like you said, you didn't do it before, you're doing them now. So how do you think about what to do, and how do you do it sort of in a way that's a risk, but a safe risk? How do you think about that now?
I'm a big getting it on paper kind of guy. Draw out ideas, making sketches, making these like brainstorming sketches, which probably looks, when you look at it, it's like, what the heck is he doing? It's like something out of a movie, but laying out pros and cons and discussing it with my mentor, coach.
Yep.
Even running it off my father. These are really good things to just kind of weigh, hey, how significant is it? What are the benefits? What could we get? What could we lose? And
go
flip
forward.
the coin, right?
Get going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So two kind of follow-ups on that, which is who in the organization, right? You made the point before, you can't talk to everybody, and you've got what, 40 some odd full-time employees plus another dozen plus, part-time. So it's a sizable organization. You can't know everything. How do you collect information from people to get the inputs to determine where to reinvest, where to make changes? Like, who do you bring into those decisions in the company?
I have two vice presidents, that do kind of two different things. One's on the technology and operations standpoint, and the other is like a planning job, concentrates on jobs. So they're my two key guys. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it branches down, right? So I have a few guys that run the plant, each individual plant. We have 3 facilities. So we have building managers that they get hit with everything from those buildings. So their input is key. And then even going farther down to the operators, to the people that are actually packing parts, getting their input.
And so you try and get them to kind of get the information and really filter it back up so you guys can make those key decisions.
I try not to short circuit from the top. If I feel like I need to get an actual answer from someone way down below, it's a nice time to interact with these employees because they're making it happen.
Right.
And again, we don't want that thing where the boss comes out and they don't want to give you what you want. I always say, tell me what I need to know, not what I want to hear, because those are really important. And
do you feel like when you walk the floor, you can get that information?
Yeah, which is good. Honesty is really key.
Super important. Important. So you get the information, you work with these guys, and then you're just making these changes. Do you guys make 1 or 2 investments at a time and then kind of see how they operate? You structure them out? Like, how do you think of it from that perspective?
So last year we made a lot of investments. It has kind of snowballed.
Yeah.
So just knowing what we've done the last year, we might have 2 or 3 major projects going on at the same time. Don't want to have to do that because it's nice to take something on, tie it off, move on to the next. There's nothing worse than juggling 4 or 5 balls, right?
Right.
So, and then the mainstream is of all the jobs running through our plant. Sometimes we'll have investments that come up and spring up. So
gotcha. So
that's how we take
when you think about, just to circle back a little bit to talking about diversification, because I think that sometimes ties into these investments because you circled that
Very
back.
much.
So how has diversification impacted your business? A lot of manufacturers on the podcast that we've talked to offline have talked about, diversifying. Obviously there's a pretty good run on aerospace for a while, although that's struggling a little bit right now. It'll come back.
It'll come back.
But a lot of people try to diversify into that or whatever. And you had mentioned automotive, and you guys are in a bunch of different stuff. So just, how do you think about diversification, and how do you deal with the differing demands? One of the challenges I hear about from diversification is, well, if I'm in medical, then the needs of the medical customers and what we have from potentially, HIPAA or FDA compliance, right? If something's going to be in an operating room, that's got to meet certain standards, which probably the paint on a tractor oil can don't have to meet. Or if I'm giving someone a grenade that they're going to, bring into a war theater, that probably has a different set. And then, you talked about Tesla, and we've got all these different things. How do you think about getting the benefits of diversification while managing what feels like it could just be a crushing amount of complexity in terms of how to execute?
It's a lot. Let's take a deep breath here.
Yeah.
So diversification is so important. You have to be able to, I know in our business that there's no job that's not a good job, right? So the small job is just as important as the big job. Being able to accommodate 1 to millions of parts, we have to be able to have a piece of machinery that can just do the onesie twosie without having to set up this huge system to do the millions. So I have to say that that's probably not a new thing for us to be diversified as far as equipment, right? And as far as coatings are concerned, all we do is organic coatings. We don't do any inorganics like platings.
Okay.
With plating, we used to do plating. We used to do anodizing. We used to do everything.
Okay.
But in the 1980s, we kind of had to make a decision. All right, are we going to do painting? Or are we going to do plating? So we really only do organic coatings. So from that, there's a few coatings that we've stuck with. There's a few that we have developed further. A lot of the technology really hasn't changed over the past 20 years. I mean, yeah, computers have totally helped us, but from a paint, you're still applying paint to the part,
Right.
And the technology is still there. So, diversifying our equipment has been really important.
The biggest part,
and then our customer base too. Like you said from the beginning. That is very important.
So just to clarify for me, the idea was that organic coatings separate from the plating stuff is like paints are organic, but then if I'm doing sort of like metal coating, metal finishing, and I would imagine, is it fair to say that the metal side has a lot more environmental risk management stuff than the organic side, or do they both kind of have?
They have different environmental impacts. So typically in the plating, you're dealing with water treatment, wastewater, stuff like that. And with paint, we have emissions. So, you drive by an auto body shop, you could certainly, these are things that we've been working on.
Sure.
We've had a lot of support from, CBIA, National Manufacturing Association on how to limit these environmental impacts. So we've been going towards waterborne coatings versus solvent-borne coatings, reducing those emissions. Obviously powder coating has been a huge part of our business, which doesn't have many emissions at all, which is nice. And then the electric coating, which is kind of a plating operation, but instead of plating on, metals on metal, so we're not plating zinc on steel, we're actually plating on organic epoxy resin on steel, and that has no emissions. And it's 99.5% used. It's recycled material, so we don't lose any. There's no waste. So concentrating on those types of coatings has been a big part of our direction.
Is going green, if you will, is that something you guys think about in terms of environmental impact?
It's paint is paint.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're dealing with paint and if it is solvent borne, you have that problem. We have taken direction from the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and the EPA. They've started to bring those limits down. So companies like PPG and Sherwin-Williams, they make these materials that will comply with those laws.
And then you use those, so you're good to go.
And then we use those, so we're good to go. Correct.
You had mentioned NMA, you mentioned CBIA.
Yep.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Are you pretty involved in some different manufacturing groups and, with limits on your time and all the different stuff we talked about you got to do? Why, it sounds like you are involved, why do you choose to spend your time there?
I'm not as involved as I'd like to be. I'm not on any boards or anything, but we certainly look to CBIA on a lot of our big business decisions, anywhere from when to take those holidays and what days to do that, all the way up to environmental or financial, COVID, and anything that has a major impact, looking to see what other people are doing, or, hey, here's a recommendation on how to do it.
And so you found CBIA and the NMA, with the National Manufacturing Association, for anyone that doesn't know, you found those organizations have been helpful for you
National
along the way.
Manufacturing has been key to getting awareness on getting business back into America.
Yeah.
And promoting into Washington, hey, we got to do something about it.
So let's talk about that. Yeah, you talked about the watch, kind of on that front. You talked about the watch project from Timex. Yeah. So what are you seeing from a reshoring and manufacturing growth in America perspective in the coating business?
Certainly seeing it. So as a coater, we depend on the guys that make the metal or the other products, plastic, wood, whatever have you. There is a pretty decent movement, especially in the last 2-3 years, coming back.
Really?
I have a customer that makes die cast. So, you look at let's just take Connecticut, because here we are.
That's what we're talking about.
So you look at cities like Bridgeport, Torrington, Waterbury, Hartford. You look at a lot of these buildings that have been dormant since the late '90s, mid '90s, since NAFTA pulled a lot of work out of here. A lot of businesses left. A lot of companies have closed. So we are seeing things come back. I have a die casting customer that is 24/7, and they are expanding. They just built like an 80,000 square foot facility in Ohio. That's good news to hear, right? Instead of we're slow, we're closing up. They're building up.
Wow.
So I think those that have survived, 2008 was a hard time too. So those that have survived those types of downturns are going to totally take on the uptick, right? The upturn. So that's very important. But we've been very fortunate. I think there's a pretty good network of metal finishers in our area and in the Northeast, and everybody has pretty much maintained. That's great news.
That is great news.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of, you referenced the downturn? Just a quick question about, you guys have been through a lot, and you were around for the financial meltdown and now COVID. What's the impact on your business? What was it kind of then 12 years ago, and what are you guys seeing right now?
12 years ago was really tough. That was big slowdown. Anybody that was making stuff, slowed down. The COVID hasn't really slowed us down per se. Like, again, we're diverse, so there's really people that are making things are still making it. It's just a little slower. Materials have been kind of, supply has been some materials are hard to get. But overall, I think people have just stayed on target. Hey, we all have to just stay in this and get a steady paycheck. So our employees have been phenomenal being there.
It's been working out.
I think that and I know that our customer base, because I talk to a lot of our customers, and everybody is holding their own, which is good.
That's very good.
But man, I often ask myself how we made it through 2009, 10. It was hard, and I remember those days, and it's talk about something that you put in your back pocket and remember forever and learn from. right? The buckling down, thinning down. What are we spending our money on? What are we doing? Where are we gonna get those sales? Right?
Do you think it made you a better business leader?
I certainly think that again, not sure much as a leader, but just from a business standpoint, it certainly makes you appreciate what we have, and just remember those times.
Yeah. Coming out of it, do you feel like you really forced you because you just said such terms I've heard before, like, slim up, slim down, buckle down,
Sure.
really focus out. Sometimes you can see that the companies that survive those things, number one, were the people that were more ready. And number two, sometimes come out a better version of themselves afterwards.
There's no doubt. No doubt.
And helped kind of set up for this, for the next decade.
Yep.
What do you think makes a good business leader?
That's a toughie. You have to be a good listener. You have to be able to deal with everybody's personality. You have to be positive. You have to be encouraging, right? Yeah. No one wants to be beaten down. You have to be my wife will love this. You have to be a good communicator. So love that comment. Yeah. Those are important things because everybody wants to know, hey, what's the horizon look like? What's my job going to be? So
looking out over the horizon, helping guide that ship.
Yeah, being motivated.
Yeah. What's it like to work at Giering Metal Finishing? What's the culture like there?
It's like watching paint dry. Hey, no, it's
checking the box. Yeah.
You gotta make a T-shirt.
That's right. Whoever had watching paint dry on their bingo card, check. Yeah.
We are small enough where everybody matters. Everybody's got a pretty good voice. We try to be a very positive environment. We remember people's birthdays. It's never easy, and you're never going to do the right thing. I feel like sometimes that's very hard, but for the most part, I hope that everybody loves their job. We try to have a nice summer picnic every year. Last year we had a dunk tank.
Nice.
So everybody got to dunk the big guy. and then and what was great is that everybody all of a sudden jumped in and they wanted to get dunked. It was great.
That's awesome.
You kind of get back at your boss.
Yeah.
One of my guys has a pizza truck. We just have a really nice.
That sounds great.
I love my team. I really. Everybody has their days, right? But in the long run, I am blessed with who I have that working for me. We've got some people that have been working us for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We had a driver that retired a few years ago at 50 some odd years. He's almost 90. He's a great guy. So those are good signs. I hope that the feeling is mutual. Yeah,
those are great signs. And I want to ask you a question about that culture, but you reminded me of something I was reading on a LinkedIn post today, actually, talking about, someone wrote an article kind of going against the long work weeks and, don't try and work hard. And the post talked about the idea that people need to redefine what that word work means. And I really this resonated with me and maybe able to resonate with you, which is when I really enjoy it, I don't feel like I'm working. Like I'm in the office a lot. I do a lot of stuff for my customers, but I don't work. I mean, in the traditional sense of doing something I don't want to do, the idea of a 4-hour work week just sounds horrific to me because I enjoy so much, what I do. And it sounds like you've tried to build, a culture. You've got a bunch of people there that probably don't look at going to Giering as work either because they're having a good time doing it. Yeah. And feel like they're making a difference. That matters.
Making a paycheck is a nice thing. It's funny because, we have actually, from an energy standpoint, we've considered going to 4 days and working 4 10-hour days. So you still get your 40 hours in, which can be nice because then you don't have to start everything up every day. And then all the stuff withers down and you got to do it all again the next day. We've considered the 4-day, but it would still be a 40-hour week.
Huh. So, is that something you guys might pull the trigger on?
We have discussed it. A lot of our customers already do it. Again, our business is so dynamic. We're always, certain contracts start up and we need that 5th day.
Yeah.
And then, part of our business, paint's not a clean thing. So part of our work week is that end of the day, I try not to have my customers there on a Friday because Saturdays are dedicated cleanup day. So we're always cleaning out the booths, sweeping the floors. And then we let the dust settle over the weekend so that Monday is a nice, clean, fresh day. So I don't know.
Well, if you do, let me know. Because it's like, that's one of those
things on the plate, on the back burner. It's there.
It's one of those things I've thought about too. Like, I don't know how I get that to be safe to try, but I'm like trying to figure it out. So you talked about, got this great culture, people that want to be there. You talked to people who've been there for a long time. Another thing we talk about a lot on the podcast is workforce. Yeah. And, obviously with COVID, not everybody's growing the way that they were. But there's a lot of people that are retiring, and the manufacturing workforce in Connecticut has skewed older. What do you guys see at Giering in terms of, your workforce turnover and your ability to replace some of these people that you said have been there 3-4 decades? Yeah. What's your ability to replace them, and what do you see kind of on the workforce front?
We've been fortunate to be able to replace certain people. There's definitely a lot of tribal knowledge that we may not be able to replace, and will take a long time to learn. We've got some young guys joined our team, which is great. I've got a young quality guy. I've got we actually bring in some high school and college kids to work there over the summer, get a feel for it. So that's been good. Again, I'm there because 2 guys retired.
Right.
So I think trades are really important for kids to learn these days. Not everybody can, not everybody's going to go into banking. Not everybody's going to sell insurance. You have to be diverse. I think that countries that can manufacture their own products are blessed because they can generate wealth. Yeah. If you make your own product, you can generate your own wealth, right? Otherwise, you're just transferring it back and forth. You got to make something. And I think that with 3D printing and with the CAD software out there, I think kids see them like, whoa, I can design that. I can make that. I can have that built, a custom, whatever it is. I can have my robot doing whatever it is for me. Those are really important. Yeah. And can service the manufacturing sector really well.
How do you talked about getting people in from high schools and universities and getting summer internships, which to your earlier, to your point about a lot of other industries have done that. Where do you guys find those people, and how do you get them in?
I have to say a lot of it's word of mouth. This opportunity here is going to give me a little bit of press, and maybe it'll reach out to people that don't just know me from the hood, from the neighborhood, right? But a lot of people drive down State Street, see our signs, see our buildings, see what we do, see drones flying over and trucks moving all around. So we get, we're on a main strip. People do see that, and over the decades, we've employed a lot of people. So again, word of mouth has been good. Oh, my grandfather used to work for your grandfather, or my aunt used to work there. So we've been able to pull that in because there's some interest.
Oh, that's really cool. Just want to ask kind of a question that's been a newer question I've been asking on the podcast, but there's a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion kind of in the zeitgeist, if you will. How do you think about diversity, inclusion, at Giering, and what do you guys see from the workforce? Is your workforce diverse from, backgrounds and all that stuff? How do you think about that?
Very diverse, which is great. Guys, girls, different races, everybody working together. It's again, we're blessed. I think it goes beyond the work. It's everywhere. I volunteer as a ski patroller, and it's very diverse. So that's nice.
When did you get into ski patrolling?
2003. That's my
my
go-to. It's my vent during the weekends. It allowed me to continue my interest in medicine, but great group, great bunch of guys, good skill to know. Just being at work and knowing what to do when something goes down. There's getting that positive, like, hey, here's what we have to do. Take a step back. Here's what we got to do. Not to get off the subject here.
No, that's fine.
But
Because I know I did obviously prep for this. I did some research, so I did know that you were in the Vermont ski patrol.
Yeah,
And
Mount Snow, baby.
So I mean, unfortunately, had a very serious accident at Stratton, and the Stratton ski patrol, along with some folks over at Dartmouth Hospital and some helicopter pilots, really literally saved my life, and with some of my friends too. So I've got a soft spot in my heart for Vermont ski patrollers.
Well, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that someone helped, because we get letters, emails, people bring food in for us. Hey, you saved me last year. Thank you so much. That couldn't bring tears to your eyes.
Yeah. No, listen.
You know.
You do. When you never know when you're going to need someone, but it's nice to have them there when you do.
I've been through a life tragedy as well. Talk about waking yourself up and realizing, hey, what am I doing today? What am I going to do different that's going to make a difference today?
Yeah, it makes a lot of things seem a lot smaller.
It's not easy. So
yeah, no, it's all good. Keep on moving.
Yeah.
So just one last question before we get into rapid fire rounds. It was kind of a deep question, but what do you think? Just back to that diversity inclusion for a second. What do you think business leaders' role is in helping us come together as a country and really embrace that sort of diversity inclusion? What is the role as business leaders? What can we do, and what should we do?
Uniting,
if anything?
Right? Community is unity. Whatever you can do outside of business, whatever, what you do can make a huge difference. Volunteer work. Getting involved doesn't necessarily have to be like what I do from a patrol standpoint, but I think getting involved in either your schools or your kids' stuff, and working with other parents, working with other groups. It's important to include everybody, and everybody having an equal opportunity to see different things is key. And I think we're seeing that.
I agree with that.
Some people have brought these things up at work, and I think it's really good that we're at least talking about it. You can certainly go through your workday and lose track of that kind of thing, and it's a really good thing that we're at least making headway. From the ground up. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Listen, as I've always said, we can't guarantee outcomes, but we should be able to guarantee opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a big deal. I love that community is unity.
A lot of people have worked their way up in our business and started from nothing. And that's, again, with the blinders on, just in talking about just us at Giering, about getting involved and about opportunity. People have lived that dream.
Yeah, that's important.
Nice. Yeah, and it's great to see it. It's great to see their family grow, and it's great to see them grow as a person, and then pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, that's right.
Pass the baton.
That's right. Yeah, listen, we can only control the things that are directly around us, and if we all touch somebody and then they help someone else and they help someone else, that's how we grow. That's awesome. George, I appreciate that. We're going to go to something a little bit lighter, the rapid fire round of questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Fire away.
Red Sox or Yankees?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Yankees.
Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
Oh man, I'm gonna say Dunkin' Donuts because I never go to Starbucks.
Nice.
Dunkin'.
The Dunkin'. Sorry, yeah, I gotta sort of get that out of here. I think it says Dunkin' on the paper, but I still put the donuts in. So when you take time off, take COVID out of the equation here. Sure. You more of a staycation guy or exotic destination?
Ooh. We like to go kind of in the wilderness.
Okay. So that'd be exotic destination.
Vermont, Maine, we can totally unplug. I guess exotic.
That's what I would go with. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
Ooh, SUV, because you have to be diversified.
That's right. Got to be able to get in those woods.
Got to get that car seat in there.
If you had to do something other than be the president of Giering Metal Finishing, and it could literally be anything in the entire world, what would you do?
Oh man, that's a good question. Astronaut.
Astronaut. I love it. I love it. That's a good one.
I always, as a kid, I always wanted to be a special, like a special forces guy, like in the military.
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
Wow. Astronaut. My son loves going to love that answer.
Good.
Do you have a favorite business book?
I don't. Dale Carnegie writes that book. What's it called?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's
a
my
good
mother
one.
made me read that when I was young, and I still remember passages, and it still actually comes across my desk once in a while. That's a good book.
That's a great book.
Yep.
What's something, George, you learned early in your career or early in your life that you think has helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
I learned it actually, it was just after college from my godfather. And I quote it a lot. It's actually, my employees are going to laugh because they see it everywhere, but lead, follow, or get the heck out of the way. It's key. It's been, it's burned in my brain.
No, that's a good one. What's something that you learned later in your career or later in your life that if you could go back and tell young George and he'd listen to you, you think could make a real positive impact on his life?
Take some time off for yourself, please. Give yourself just a little bit of time to do what you got to do.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
I like that very much.
Yeah.
George, man, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your views. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Feeling is mutual, man. I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. You know, my goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.